Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Samito here, and today we're going to be doing Genji Guide Part 2. I said in the last Genji Guide, depending on how well that one was received, I'd be making a Part 2 to it, and the video did great. You guys really loved it, and the thing you guys wanted me to talk about the most was how to use your Dragonblade. So in today's video, we're going to be analyzing how you need to Dragonblade on Genji. So there are a couple parts of Dragonblade that I'm going to talk about today in this video. One is going to be building your blade, what you need to be doing to build your Dragonblade, and then two is actually going to be using the blade. In a meta now where it's a lot of goats, and unfortunately, Zen goats specifically, you can't really play Genji into that efficiently because not only do they have a beat drop, they also have a Transcendence and a Brig, so you're not going to get much value from Genji, but we're going to be assuming that goats comp is not going to be being played by the enemy team. If the enemy team is on goats, you just need to get off Genji. Like, unless you're one of the best Genjis in the world, even then, you still need to get off Genji against that comp just because you're not going to get much value from the character. But we're going to talk about just normal 2-2-2 comps, what you need to do with Genji to be effective with Blade. So the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to Dragonblade is getting it quickly. The most important thing when it comes to Dragonblade, other than its usage, is building it quickly. And depending on how fast you build it, will determine whether or not they have their support ults up for your blade. And obviously, blading into the enemy team when they don't have support ults is much better than blading into the team when they do have support ults. The most important thing about Dragonblade, other than using the blade itself, is building it quickly. Obviously, Dragonblade is best used when the enemy team does not have their support ults available, and if you can learn how to get your Dragonblade before the enemy team supports can build their ults, you'll find your blades to be way more successful. The fastest way that I've found to build your Dragonblade, especially against Rein Zarya comps, is using your deflect. If you guys are just poking at each other's shields, you should always be deflecting the enemy Reinhardt's Fire Strike into his team. This can get you up to 20-30% ult charge per deflect, and that will save you a ton of time to building your blade. At the start of each fight, especially in the first fight of each game, it really is a rush to see who can get their ultimates first, and whichever team gets those ults usually ends up winning. That's why it's really important to do poke damage at tanks like left click at Reinhardt's, but really important, I don't want to sound like a broken record, is to deflect those fire strikes. Reinhardt's always, especially in lower ranks, will carelessly throw fire strikes at your team, and I can't freaking talk because I'm a bot. But yeah, Reinhardt's, especially in lower ranks, get really carefree about their fire strikes, which are actually ult batteries for you as Genji. Every time I see a Reinhardt trying to throw his fire strike, I'm waiting with my deflect behind my Rein. I'm going to deflect it back at him, deny his ult charge, and farm my blade. Other than that, if there's no enemies out of position, you should just be constantly doing poke damage at their tanks, trying to get your blade as fast as you can. If you see somebody out of position that you think you can punish, you should go for it. But other than that, you need to be farming your blade as fast as you can. Alright, now on to actual blading. The really important thing is to communicate with your Ana about when you're going to nanoblade and how you're going to nanoblade. In this fight, I was in a bit of a rush and all their squishies were pushed up, so it was a really risky blade, but since I got nano, I was able to make it work. So I'll show you guys what happens and explain why we did what we needed to do. There's a widow looking at this angle. There's a widow looking this long angle.
10 seconds, 10 seconds.
Okay, let's go now. Go now.
Speed.
You got touch. Oh,
Touch! What is to the right there?
Colony. Oh, yeah, that blade.
He's up.
alright.
Nice, yeah. Okay, so despite that blade turning out really well, it actually wasn't that good of a blade. My positioning was bad. I didn't have my deflect ready to go. You want to go into your Dragonblade when the enemy team has used their cooldowns and when you have both of yours available. For example, Jardio's on McCree in this clip. I actually watched his POV after the game because I knew I was going to have to use this for the video, and he just barely missed his stun on me. If he gets that stun off on me, then I'm not only sitting still for a Hanzo, but I'm also sitting still for an Ana, a Brig, whatever. So it's really important. I know our team is not running dive in this case, but talk to your team. Say, alright, dive tanks, I want you guys to dive whichever target could mess up your blade and punish them as aggressively as possible. So if they're running a McCree or a Brig or an Ana, what I'm gonna say, hey Monkey, can you dive the McCree with the Diva and just get in his face and either force the stun on you or make it impossible for him to stun me, i.e. Diva matrixes him, or our Monkey's just literally in his face. But you know, it's really important to communicate with your tanks and say, force their cooldowns. I'm gonna dash up with Blade 1 second after you dive in, so they have used their cooldowns. They don't have everything available to shoot at me, and then I'm gonna go. Because if that had happened, I mean, again, this Blade did work out because honestly they overextended. It really wasn't that good on my part. you know, it makes it so much easier. They have less things to punish you. And as you guys know, Dragonblade is the most high risk, high reward ultimate in the game, in my opinion. You know, there might be a couple other ones, but it's definitely up there, okay? Genji is a high risk, high reward character. So it's really important, especially with Dragonblade, to minimize the risk as much as you can while keeping that maximum reward potential. Force their cooldowns, tell your tanks to dive in first, follow up about 1 or 2 seconds after your tanks or they've used their cooldowns, and then punish them to the best of your ability. Alright, so now I'm going to give you guys an example of how not to blade, and this is what I mean by communication with your team is really important. Our Ana gave me Nano way too early, and this is the difference between going into a team that, you know, you're playing on your own terms with, like, you know, you're going at them from the positioning that you want to go on them from. And that's why communication is really important. I know it kind of sounds weird, but blade on your own terms. Get into position where you're ready to blade and it's easy for you to get on enemies rather than going from a long distance. I'll show you guys the clip and then you'll understand. All right, let's be force start. Let's go. You ready to nano blade? You ready to nano blade? Let's go.
You're powered up. Get in there.
Okay, as you guys can see, since I wasn't quite ready for that nano, and again, you kind of do have to take accountability for that on your own. Yes, the Ana should not have nanoed me there, but if I could change the outcome by being more specific, that's the only thing that's in my control, right? So the only thing I can really control is what I communicate, and while, yeah, it is frustrating to have teammates not follow up, in the grand scheme of things, you have to learn how to take a step back, which is what I struggle with the most, and just say, okay, what can I do differently to make sure that this works next time? I just barely missed my dash in the Hanzo because I wasn't blading from a position that I was comfortable with. If I had gotten up to kind of under that bridge and then got nanoed, I would have been in a much more, like, there wouldn't have been much distance between me and 2 snipers, right? You don't want to go long range blade at 2 snipers or else you're going to be in a ton of trouble. So that really threw me off on this blade. And yet, if I had waited for my tanks to dive the snipers, the Hanzo uses his leap and the Widow uses his grapple so she can't get away from me, then it's an immobile Hanzo and an immobile Widow. However, because I went at them the way I did, they had their hook and their leap to get away from me, as well as Mercy having Valk. It just made it exponentially more hard, and obviously it just didn't work out. Instead of barely getting the 2K, I could have easily 3K'd or even 4K'd and won our team the fight. And again, it's really important to communicate with your Ana and say, this is when I want nano, I'm going to go 3, 2, 1 and then dash up, and then say, tanks, you all need to dive, blah, blah, blah. When you're playing Genji and your blade is the win condition, it is on you to establish the terms of how you want to use it to your team. You are your team's win condition. Take control of the fight, call out how you want it to go. Just say, Monkey Diva, dive X player that you're going to go for, force their cooldowns, then I'm going to go on them with the Ana. And that communication it's the most important thing, okay? You don't have to be super mechanically gifted if they don't have any abilities and you go at them with blade, okay? They're not going to be able to do anything if they don't have their abilities. Communication is extremely important, especially in low ranks. You do not have to worry about having high mechanical skill until you get to at least GM. Because if you're doing this and talking with your tanks and saying, you all dive here, you don't have to be mechanically gifted. You really don't. Being mechanically gifted on Genji, while it's very, very important, it's not as important as you might think when it comes to blade. Because really, it's just getting in position and getting 2 slashes off with nano, and then you kill them. So, don't overthink it. You guys don't have to have these fancy blades with ghost dashes or whatever. Go up, safely secure the kills, and then go next. We'll talk about that differently if you get it, into 4,200 plus, but realistically, you guys aren't 4,200 plus, or you wouldn't be watching this video, so don't make it fancy. It's simple mechanics. Tanks dive, force cooldowns, you go 1 second later on your own terms, take the fight to them when you want to go, and you'll be okay. So now you might be thinking, okay, Sam, I see what you're saying, but what do I need to do to practice it? Like, I kind of see what you're saying, but I need to get better at this. What I want you guys to do is either set up a custom lobby or do what I do before every stream at most games that I play. Come in the practice range and actually work on it. You need to actually practice what you preach. And there is a couple things I want to talk to you guys about dashing with blade as well. Essentially, it's just like this. Pull out your blade, left click dash, left click dash, left click, and then left click dash, left click, okay? You don't even have to hit the dashes per se, right? As long as you are using your dash to get right at someone's feet to where you can immediately left click your blade right after that. And it takes a little bit of practice, but if you come in the practice range, keep farming up your blade, and just eventually getting to the point where, you know, you're really good with your dashing at people's feet. And I know I talked about this in the last video where I talked about kind of combos, how it's a risky one, but you can do it if you just throw some shurikens, dash at someone's feet, and then right click them right away. It's tough to do, but you know, once I learned this combo in Genji, I think that's what's holding me back as well. You can dash at someone's feet and come up with the right click right away. It's the same concept for blade, okay? Dash at their feet, not necessarily pull out the blade, but hold on, okay, dash feet, and just people swinging your blade. Ready? Dash feet, swing the blade. And that way, you know, you don't have to angle your crosshair differently. You don't have to be doing all these 180s while in your blade. You can just simply be already right on your target and be there to swing already. So, you know, it takes practice. Come in the practice range and continue to work on it. All right, the next thing I want to touch on, which I kind of talked about a little bit already, is where you want to pull out your Dragon Blade. I said earlier in the video that you want to blade on your own terms, but you guys might not know what that means. So, as a lot of you guys know, once you get your blade and you pull out your Dragon Blade, you get a secondary dash. So, like if I dash up, pull out Dragon Blade with a double jump, and then get an extra dash to dash at a target, that's how traditionally you saw a lot of Genji's blade. That's not really the smartest thing to do a lot of the time. For example, if the enemy team has a Lucio, if you dash up, pull out your blade, dash at his feet, he's just gonna boop you away, and then you're stranded in the middle of nowhere with a Dragon Blade on targets that you won't be able to get to. So conserving that second dash is really, really important to initiate with your blade. Okay, so take this for example, okay? The enemy Lucio is back here with their team. Here's your team over here, and the enemies are over there. It wouldn't necessarily be the best thing to dash up and pull out your blade over here because you have a lot of distance to cover, right? And that's really risky. The farther you have to go with your Dragon Blade or the longer time it takes for you to get to the enemies, the more at risk you are in the blade. So my point to you guys is instead of coming straight down main, dashing straight up, what if you climb the high ground on any map, because you know it is map specific, and find the best way to get as close to the enemies as possible while being safe. So if I'm up here, the enemy team down here won't be able to shoot me. You know, think about it on maps like Volskaya, right? If you're attacking second point, say second point is right down there. There's the high ground on the top right that you can get to and hide from the enemy team. So instead of coming at an angle like straight away where it's easy for them to hit, you either pull out your blade right here and dash straight at them and kill them before they can get away. Obviously, assuming you have Nano Blade. This is kind of assuming that you have Nano Blade. If not, you have to play it a bit differently since Nano Blade really is meta. So say you want to do this instead and come up here, rather than jumping all the way from over here straight back this way. It's just way safer, right? It's much easier for you. Try to find the easiest way to Dragon Blade. And while that does sound a little bit vague in general, just make your job easier. Don't, like a lot of Genjis I see, like especially in Masters, is they'll just, like I said, they'll be sitting back here, they'll just dash straight up, and then guess what? You have a Widowmaker, or a Hanzo, a McCree, an Ana, all looking to sleep dart you while your movement is set because you're in the air. And as you guys know, your trajectory is set. Like if you're on the ground moving around, there's no predicting where you might go. Like it's hard to predict. But if you're in the air and falling down, your trajectory is known. Like it's just gonna be straight from here to here. So make it easier on yourself. Don't do those giant dashes all the time, especially if they have speed. Try to find the easiest way to get to your target without, you know, putting yourself at a lot of risk. And just for all you really hardcore Genji fanboys out there, if you want to ghost dash, you can. I wouldn't recommend doing it. It's like a behind the back pass in basketball. Like until you get to the higher level of play and memorize your sensitivity, there's really no reason for you to be ghost dashing. Like, it's just, like, even I mess it up a lot, and obviously I'm not one of the better Genjis out there, but, like, I've hit almost 4,600 on Genji before, so it's not worth it. Like, the fancy plays are cool and all, but, like, I wouldn't recommend getting into them, because it's just not, it's honestly just not worth it, dude. Like, it's all fancy and no mechanics unless, you know, you're Cavalry or some other Genji player like that. Otherwise, just focus on your base mechanics. Ghost dashing's overrated anyway. Like, it's just not worth. So, I hope you guys enjoyed and learned a little bit. The next thing that we can get into is kind of combos and how to 1v1 certain characters on Genji. For example, this clip right here.
Look where I'm shooting.
He's like right here, Tech. He's right around the corner. I hear him.
Well, I don't know.
I didn't get it. Man, this is just good. Don't worry.
So yeah, let me know what you guys think about that. I can do that. That's how you perfectly 1v1 McCree or certain situations. How do you 1v1s Hanzos, Widows, blah blah blah. That could be next. Unless you guys want to see a Hanzo guide. I'm really on the fence about what it is I want to do. This was kind of a short, general explanation on Genji that will just keep helping you guys get better. Like, my goal here is to help you guys improve and get you guys to a point where you can confidently play Genji again. But until then, dude, I wish you all the best. Thank you for watching. I'm sorry it's so dark. My lighting sucks. Much love. See you guys on the stream Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. EST. And until then, we love Fortnite. No, we don't. Well, we watch Ninja stream every day. Goodbye. See y'all later.